Hello, I'm Joanne Moore, and I'm the director of the Duxbury Senior Center, and I'd like to welcome you today to this episode of Senior Safety. Senior Safety is a collaborative effort between the Duxbury Senior Center, the Plymouth Center for Active Living, the Kingston Council on Aging, and the Pembroke Council on Aging, along with District Attorney Tim Cruz, Sheriff Joe McDonald, and PACtv. It was created to bring valuable information to our senior community during the pandemic. The topic of today's episode is how the pandemic is affecting our court system, the effect the pandemic has had on the DA's office, and some of the recent scams that have surfaced during COVID-19. Our guest for this segment is Plymouth County District Attorney Tim Cruz. So nice to see you, Tim. Candy Weiler and Marie Keefe. District Attorney, could you tell us what's been happening in the courts and what has changed because of the pandemic?
Hi, Joanne. Hi, Marie. Hi, Candy. It's great to be back. It's in these really different and challenging times that are really causing different effects for all of us. But I think that, like with everything, I mean, as we persevere and get through, we will get through this. And I'm glad that we're able to some extent, be able to continue to do these senior safety hearings so people can understand what's going on in other sectors of our world, and including the courthouse. And because right now, both our personal and our professional lives, we're all required to adhere to different rules and regulations that didn't exist a year ago. And now we have to make sure that we confine ourselves to the CDC guidelines, make sure that we keep ourselves and our families healthy and safe, from COVID-19. So we find ourselves staying at home, obviously, minimizing our exposure to the virus. But with that brings other issues. People struggling with the many issues that sort of isolation brings. People's families being separated at the same time. Learning these new technologies, learning Zoom, and trying to connect with everybody, trying to talk to everybody, making sure that we can have that relationship, that social need that we have to talk to other people. Parents have had it real tough. Parents are becoming home teachers. They have to learn to navigate virtual lessons and assist their kids with homeschool assignments. And at the same time, they have to fulfill their duties at home and fulfill their jobs, duties and responsibilities. So it's difficult. And businesses also right now, they also have to adapt. Do they have the necessary tools and resources to make sure that they're doing? And I think that, as we continue to see and progress down this road, the rules keep changing based upon the virus. And I'm glad that we have people that are monitoring that and making sure that we can do the best that we can to put this behind us as soon as we possibly can. Because right now it's February, and just about a year ago everything was relatively normal. I mean, in the Plymouth DA's office and courtrooms across our state, across the country, cases are being tried, investigations were being conducted at grand juries. Our offices were full of people, very full, very active. And then following Governor Baker's emergency declaration back in March, the Supreme Judicial Court and the Massachusetts Trial Court issued a series of orders. And these orders have changed for all of us here in the DA's office about how the courts are going to operate during the epidemic. And the orders are designed to protect people's health, the public's health, and try to reduce the exposure when people are in the courts, make sure we can slow down the disease. Because the pandemic continues to be active and fluid, the Supreme Judicial Court and the Office of the Mass Trial Court have had to make several revisions. So for a period of time, it seemed like we were getting some revisions in the morning and other revisions in the afternoon, based upon the information that they received in the middle of the day. So with the safety of court personnel, court users, and the public, trial court departments have been ordered to maintain their current level of court business. So the current trial court standing order right now is going to remain in effect until April 5 of this year. But people should remember, though, that our court system is up and running. And trying to keep it going in that fashion is a huge undertaking for a lot of people who are trying to do their jobs at the same time, trying to make sure that there's an orderly process in the legal functions. So there's been a lot of thought and planning into reopening the courts. As a district attorney in Plymouth County, I've been invited to deal with the Zoom meetings with the trial court, with the other DAs. I talked to all the other DAs, the other 10 elected DAs in the Commonwealth. We have our monthly meetings. We talk when we need to regarding serious issues, including COVID. It's unprecedented, and it's all Zoom. I haven't physically seen most of those DAs in close to a year. We used to, we meet once a month. The DAs, we always meet in Boston, and that hasn't happened since last March when it was first shut down. The trial court, I think, has done a good job in conducting the CDC guidelines regarding reopenings, and they have a 60-point checklist, which is pretty impressive. And when you walk into the court, you see that it's happening right then and there. As soon as you walk in, they make sure that the courthouse staff is self-screened before work. When you enter the courthouse, they're going to ask you health questions and take your temperature. They're going to do health screening for detainees, making sure that there's only one person per cell, much like down the jail right now, it's one person per cell. And the 50% capacity in the courthouse and the limiting the number of people in the courtrooms and the public places, the stairwells, the holding areas, everybody maintaining social distancing of 6 feet, putting up signage for visitors and plexiglass shields and barriers and counters. It's really been impressive watching how we're making sure that we can continue doing our jobs while at the same time understanding that there are guidelines and there are things that we have to abide by. Because like I said, on any given day, there's periods of time when I'll get a notification that there's been an exposure in, say, Brockton District Court will be shut down 2 days for closing. There's an exposure 2 weeks later in Hingham or in Wareham or in Plymouth, and we continue to see that occurring, unfortunately. So I think that, right now, if you're not familiar with the courthouse reopening phases, right now we're in phase 1. That means that they're conducting a limited number of 6-person jury cases that are conducted in person at a select number of locations in the Commonwealth. We did our first jury trial about 3 weeks back. We did it in Plymouth. Plymouth is our newest court in Plymouth County. It is the one that is easiest to get those sort of things up and running, whether it be district court or superior court. We're really lucky to have it. I've talked to other DAs across the Commonwealth who all of their courts that they have in their counties are antiquated and therefore not very easy to get people in and have the space necessary to social distance jurors and making sure that the jurors aren't next to each other and all the other different challenges that are there. And I think that it's important for us to try to keep things moving because at the same time that we're trying to move our older cases, newer cases are coming in and the backlog begins. And so we have to make sure that we stay on top of our backlog.
Good afternoon, District Attorney Cruz. With the courts so limited, how is your office able to function? And what happens if someone commits a crime?
Well, Candy, at the DA's office, we continue to be open. We're open as a business, but in a limited capacity. We have 133 employees that work for the Plymouth County DA's office throughout the county in Plymouth, Brockton, Wareham, and Hingham, and also Brockton Superior Court. And they're dispersed throughout the district court offices and also our main office in Brockton. And as the courts have done, we've had to adapt to COVID-19 and make the changes. So once again, if you came to our office today, you would see signs up talking and mandating, wearing masks, making sure that people are socially distancing from each other, making sure that a lot of our assistant DAs, our victim witness advocates, the administration, that they're working remotely from home if necessary, because we can only have a certain number of people in the building at any given time. So we have a rotating schedule for the assistant DAs, the administrative assistants, and the victim witness advocates, and try to make sure that we can make that work as best as we can. Most matters, because every day, although COVID's there, crime doesn't take a holiday, and there are serious cases that need to be dealt with. So a lot of the issues we're dealing with arraignments or initial court appearances, they're being handled remotely via teleconference and or video. There are limited in-person hearings, but I know that I've been to, for very serious cases, I've been to arraignments and in our various courts throughout the county since it's been going on. I think it's been a challenge for, as you probably know, that we have 27 communities in Plymouth County, the city of Brockton, and 26 towns. Plus, we deal with Bridgewater State University. We deal with Massasoit Community College. And we have the state police who are assigned to the DA's office who investigate all the unattended deaths, all the homicides, and all the major drug cases. And I think that people should know and understand that the state police assigned to our office are continuing to work in conjunction with the local police, making sure that we can be ready for the cases as they pop up. And if something terrible happens, which is unfortunately most people will see me, if something terrible happens, people should be rest assured that we will have the appropriate people there making sure that we do our job so that we can have the orderly administration of justice and make sure that we also deal with the individuals that need to be dealt with. And we continue to do that. And like I said, I continue to show up at scenes myself. My staff does when necessary, work in conjunction with the state police. My appellate team has had a number of cases with the Supreme Judicial Court. We're participating in many things remotely. I participated in a parole hearing that's normally they're held in person in Natick for the whole state. I've been on in virtual hearings and giving my testimony as to what I thought should happen as regards to an individual who was trying to get paroled. I think, every day that we're getting more and more used to it. But, as the arraignments and indictments are happening, we've had more and more dates for our grand jury, which is an essential and an important tool that we use for investigative and prosecutorial reasons. So we continue moving forward. I think that's the important gist you can get from this. We continue to move forward. We cross our fingers that there's not going to be any further setbacks. But we're well aware of the fact that if there are setbacks and if there are bumps in the road, I'm confident that we're going to continue to handle them as best as we can and make sure that we can do our job to keep the community and the public safe by an aggressive form of prosecution, and at the same time helping the people that need the help the most. So if anybody has any questions about what's going on in the court system, don't hesitate to call our office at 508-584-8120. That's 508-584-8120, and we'll answer the questions as best as we can.
Thank you.
Okay. District Attorney Cruz, before the coronavirus pandemic hit, there was a lot of great work being done in regards to battling the opioid pandemic. What toll has the pandemic taken on the success that was made?
Yeah, Maria, that's a great question. I mean, much like crime doesn't take a holiday, substance abuse doesn't take a holiday either. And those challenges are there and they remain there. Before the pandemic hit, we were here in Plymouth County. I think we were leading the charge from the Plymouth County Drug Abuse Task Force, Plymouth County Outreach, Plymouth County Hope, getting all 27 communities together, working together to try to make sure we can help the people that need to be helped. And at the same time, getting the dealers and the people who are peddling this poison off the streets and have them accountable for their actions. So we've continued on this path, but it's been a little bit of a different path. And I think that, through the success of the collaboration by the Drug Task Force, we continue to track substance use trends throughout, in our database, continuing to figure out how many overdoses have occurred in our county, how many were fatal, how many were non-fatal, how many were treated with Narcan, how many substance abusers or their families utilize our support and treatment resources, which I believe has been an effective tool in trying to make sure that we can get resources to the families that are really at their wits' end, and they are. And I think it's a fair statement to say most people know somebody or a family that's been dealing with these issues, and it's devastating. And we have to go forward, even in these difficult times, and you really can't do things face to face. As I stated, the troopers that work for me have done a remarkable job. They continue to go out and investigate ongoing cases, ongoing fentanyl and carfentanil and trafficking of those charges and of those substances. The cocaine that's making a comeback, unfortunately. We've been able to successfully get lots of drugs off the street. We'll continue to do that to make sure that we can go forward with our overall, the goal. The goal here is to help everybody. And how can you best do that? And enforcement is a big avenue to keep sure that we can help people. But we got to continue to work on all sides of the issue. And as you know, Plymouth County Outreach was an offshoot of the task force. And that's my office. That's Sheriff McDonald's office, the hospitals, recovery, treatment, mental health facilities. We've been able to remain stable and making sure that we continue to work with those people. I mean, I continue to participate virtually in the Plymouth County Outreach meetings regarding the overdoses, the Narcan distribution, recovery coaches. The recovery coaches during pre-COVID were going door to door within 12 to 24 hours of an overdose. And it was great because they were bringing resources, because one of the biggest issues that we've all found out about drugs and issues is the stigma that goes along with that. People are embarrassed. People don't know where to go. So, outreach, Plymouth County Outreach, which is really unprecedented, not just in Massachusetts. It's really unprecedented, I think, in the United States, where we have every town and city in the county signing up to an MOU. So that if somebody overdoses, say in Duxbury, but they're from Brockton, there's conversations between Brockton and Duxbury, and within 12 to 24 hours of a non-fatal, there'll be a recovery coach, there'll be a plainclothes police officer, they'll be bringing resources to those people, trying to get the information to the people that need it the most. Now it's virtual. People aren't going door to door anymore, but things are virtual. And like I said, the challenges remain. The challenges remain for the grandparents that are dealing with their grandkids because their own children are stuck in the throes of the substance abuse addiction, which is a huge problem. We continue and have been doing for years working with drug endangered kids and also other children who witness violence. Trauma in people's lives changes them, and it affects them, unfortunately, for the worse. So we need to continue to make sure that we're dealing with the kids who have what's known as adverse childhood experiences, the kids who are witnessing violence in their homes, the kids that are witnessing drugs in their home, and the kids who are potentially going to be changed forever unless they get the help and the resources. And so, we've been doing for years now. I think it's probably 12 years we started with our initial handle with CARE, which dealt with domestic violence and child abuse and violence in the city. And it was incredibly effective. And when we noticed in 2013 that there was an uptick in heroin issues in our county, we decided to take what we used and what we learned, best practices, and apply that to the drug overdoses. So now we do trainings in schools. I did one yesterday for one of the Brockton middle schools, online, of course. But prior to COVID, I was going around the county. We were going around with TLPI, the Trauma and Learning Policy Initiative, which is affiliated with Harvard Law School, with Mass Advocates, and going to schools and talking to teachers and talking to people that work at schools. And like I tell the teachers, I said, many times the teachers could be the only caring person in that child's life, when they show up that day. And, maybe they didn't get breakfast, maybe they didn't get something to eat. And when they go to school, they know that there's somebody that cares for them. And I thank the teachers for the work that they do. And I understand that, these kids are relying on them. And we need to make sure that we help them and help those children so we can try to make sure we can help those kids who have been exposed to trauma and so that they aren't in that cycle. And when I see cycles, whether it be for our Children's Advocacy Center, where we deal with, unfortunately, 12 to 1,300 cases of child abuse every year, how do you stop today's victim from being tomorrow's perpetrator? You have to get services for that child. You have to get it to them at an easy level. You have to be in a position where you can make sure that the people who are hurting children are held accountable for their actions, and also remove the child from those dangerous circumstances. And now, as we continue to move on with human trafficking, which is here in our county, it's here in our state, it's here in the US, we need to make sure that we continue to give trainings as best as we can, and we give our teachers and our agencies the proper tools and the proper resources to identify what's going on so they can help these kids. So, we just got a federal grant as pertains to our human trafficking between ourselves and Health Imperatives here in the city of Brockton. It's $1.5 million. We're going to be able to hire additional prosecutors and also get additional trainings and resources for our community countywide. And I'm very excited about it. It is the next step of many steps that I think that we do on a daily basis here in the office that you may not think of when you think of the DA's office, but being proactive is a necessary issue for us right now. And that's what we've been doing. So if anybody ever has any questions regarding what we're doing, if you need to get information, phone numbers, whatever it may be, regarding any of the situations you may be dealing with of a criminal nature or a court nature, don't hesitate to go on PlymouthDA.com. All of our information is there, and it can certainly help you.
Hey, Cruz, can you tell us about some of the scams that have surfaced as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, like we've talked about before, there's always, unfortunately, scams, and the scam artists out there who are really good at what they do. So what they do, they're very malleable. They can change it to whatever the crisis of the day is. And so they've certainly been able to get involved with COVID-19. And we've seen them, surface in our county, and they're currently active in our communities. There's particular scams that are pertaining to contact tracing, fraudulent billing of Medicare for COVID testing, treatment, and supplies, and most recently, COVID vaccinations, which is all the issue right now is how can seniors, get their vaccinations and work their way through the system. The contact tracing scam works like this. You will either get a call or a text to something to the effect of they're going to say to you, good morning. According to our system, you've likely been in close proximity to somebody who tested positive for COVID-19. That means that you need to now self-isolate for a period of time and also take a COVID-19 test. When you get that call, I mean, if I received that call, the first question out of my mouth is, well, who was it? Who was I near? And they artfully work their way around that and say it's confidential because of HIPAA and all the other medical laws. They're not able to tell you. But however, you still need to be tested within 72 hours, and they're going to need your best mailing address so they can send you a kit. And they also will ask you for your credit card number so they can charge you a $50 fee. Now, if you question this amount of money, you're told, this testing's not free, and it's a one-time fee of $50 for the kit for the test results. And if you give them further emphasis, you're not going to give them that information, they're going to pressure you to read off your credit card numbers. When you push back, they're going to say they're going to threaten you with penalties for not complying, and more or less threaten you. If you are getting those emails, or if you are getting texts, or if you are getting phone calls, legitimate people are never going to threaten you. All right? People are not, it's just not going to happen. Earlier this year, the Massachusetts Senior Medicare Patrol Program sent out an alert warning seniors to never accept any form of COVID-19 testing from anybody other than a treating licensed physician or from a state designated testing site. Scammers now are also going door to door, and they're approaching people in public with an offer of testing for the coronavirus. They give you a false positive test result, and they offer to treat you immediately. Through this scheme, because they scare people, this is what they do, and remember, they're good at it. Through this scheme, they've been able to illegally obtain Medicare numbers and money. They've even gone so far as to bill Medicare with the numbers that they get. So, as we look at that, remember, it's like everything. We have to be safe. We have to be vigilant right now, and that includes for people who are reaching out to us and trying to get our information and or our money. And now we start to see also a series of COVID vaccination scams starting to surface. Phishing scams that we've talked about in the past related to signing up for the vaccine online have started to emerge. And there is a legitimate site that you can go on to check for a vaccine location, and it's maimmunizations.org. The scammers, however, have set up a phishing site, and at this website is maimmunization.org. Now, the difference is that the legitimate one has an S at the end. The non-legitimate one does not. The site's sole purpose is to steal your information. They pick a site like that to make it purposely confusing so that you won't know which one it is when you're dealing with it. So it's incredibly hard to detect. The only difference between the two addresses of these two sites is the legitimate site contains that S on the mass MA immunizations, and the fake site does not.
That would be easy to miss.
Mm.
Very.
Wow, District
Very.
Attorney Cruz, that's scary. I'm concerned that I might put in the wrong site address. What should I do?
I know, I'm glad you asked that, because obviously everybody should be very careful, be extra vigilant, because like I said, these individuals are good at what they do and they're very malleable. So right now in Massachusetts, appointment signups can only be done through that confusing state website, which is causing a lot of frustration for people.
Mhm.
And hopefully there's going to be an easier method to sign up that's going to be rolled out soon. So until then, we need to make sure that you have to make sure you're on the correct and legitimate website. No matter how frustrating it is, signing up is something that we can't take shortcuts. That means don't click on any link that you receive an email or a text or a phone unless you know for sure that it's from a trusted source. If you are not sure if that source can be trusted, make the assumption that it is not trustworthy. Only set up your appointments through the mass.gov website. If you can't get through, call your primary care physician's office to see if they can assist you with getting the appointment that you need.
Okay. District Attorney Cruz, In regards to setting up my appointment to receive the vaccine, is there anything else that we should be aware of?
Yeah, Marie, there's always, like I say, there's always things to be aware of. Number one is if you are asked to pay out-of-pocket expenses to receive the vaccine, be wary of that. The vaccine is free. That you will be asked for your insurance card, as the insurance company is going to be billed for fees associated with administering the vaccine. But an individual will never be asked to pay anything up front, like a copay or an administration fee. And if somebody also tells you that you have to pay a fee to get your name on a list, also be leery of that. The vaccine, as we all know, is being rolled out in phases. If you went on the Massachusetts website, mass.gov, the lists are there. There's no special lists or opportunity for early access to receive the vaccine before your designated phase. If somebody contacts you via phone, text, email, or social media, stating that they're going to get you on a vaccine for a fee list, be alert. That is a scam. If you receive an offer to purchase a vaccine and have it delivered to your house, there are no secret sources of vaccines. There's only a couple kind of medications, might be 3 before we know it, and there's only one way for us to get them at this point. So although frustrating, and I understand the frustration, we have to go slow, and when in doubt, ask for help. There are people who can help you, and eventually we'll navigate the system so that everybody that needs to get it gets it in the fashion that they're supposed to.
So I have a question, District Attorney Cruz. Many of our seniors are on Facebook and other social media apps to stay connected with their families and friends because they're not seeing them in person. Should they be concerned about scams when they're on those apps?
Once again, another great question, Joanna. Yes, the short answer is yes. I mean, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the scammers are using social media to perpetrate COVID-19 related scams. In one major scheme, fraudsters hacked social media accounts and sent direct messages to beneficiaries while posing as a friend or a government employee. The impersonator claims the person is eligible for government grants, citing various reasons like COVID-19, disabilities, etc., and urges them to call a phone number to collect the funds. Upon calling, the beneficiary is asking you to pay a processing fee by using a bank account, information, gift cards, or even Bitcoin to receive the grant money. In return, targets of the scam are never going to receive any money, but they're often going to find that large sums of money are stolen from them. These alleged grants are entirely illegitimate. Remember, when people reach out to you telling you you've won the lottery, they tell you that you're going to get a vaccine, they tell you all these things, and all you've got to do is pay a fee in advance, and they're reaching out to you. That should make you leery enough to know that this doesn't sound right.
District Attorney Cruz, I recently received an email from Social Security Administration telling me that my Social Security number had been compromised. The email asked that I click on a link to verify my number. I was a bit alarmed and suspicious of it, so I didn't click on the link. Could this be a scam?
Yeah, it's definitely a scam, unfortunately. And I commend you for trusting your correct instincts because they were right. There is a Social Security scam going around. Scammers pretending to be government employees working for the Social Security Administration or some other government agency to insist in their scheme. They're going to email you false documents. They're going to look really official through the email. This form of phishing that's out there. Once again, they're throwing lines in the water, seeing who they can get the bite on it. The scammer is going to tell you there's a problem, whether there's an issue with the Social Security number or your account, or you owe a debt, or you owe a fine, and they're going to threaten to arrest or pursue or other legal action if you don't pay. They'll ask you to pay the debt or fine with retail gift cards, prepaid debit cards, wire transfers to good old cash. Remember, the government doesn't want gift cards. All right, they don't. And like we always say, you know, I mean, these individuals will threaten you, cajole you. Don't ever be afraid to just plain hang up. And also don't ever be afraid to understand that if they ever get to the level where they're threatening you, that they're going to come and arrest you. Like we all remember the IRS scam, I'm going to come and arrest you in 5 minutes if you don't answer. And like I always say, the same little joke I always tell that the main secret of law enforcement, I'll tell you what it is, but you got to keep it to yourself, is that, when law enforcement is going to come and arrest you, they're not going to call you first. They're just coming. So it's the same thing. So they try to scare you, they try to threaten you, and they're going to try to make you give them something that you normally wouldn't give. When somebody is calling you and asking you for information, whether it be allegedly a credit card company, your bank, Sears, anything such as that, remember, if you have a legitimate account with those institutions, they all have your information. They don't need to be calling you. I'm sure of that.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, this is alarming, DA Cruz. So how can we protect ourselves from this kind of a scam?
Well, the best way, unfortunately, is watching shows like this, being suspicious, trust but verify, be alert, ask questions, don't respond immediately, no knee-jerk reactions. Remember, like I said, government employees, they might call you, but they're not going to threaten you. And some of the things we've heard is that Social Security Administration employees will threaten to suspend your Social Security number. They're never going to do that. And they're not going to try to alert you. They're going to contact you for the most part, usually by certified mail, or whatever the government agency is. A lot of people don't pick their phones up. Any employee of Social Security, like I said, or government agency is never going to demand immediate payment. They're never going to demand gift cards, credit cards, prepaid debit cards. I mean, think of that for a second. I mean, really? Yes. If you ever get a call from a government employee and they're being rude to you, whatever, ask to speak to their supervisor. If it's not legit, they're not going to give it to somebody else, and they're going to just cajole you even more. So remember, hang up. You can do that. This is America. You don't have to listen to these people. So I think the most important thing is to make sure that we stay vigilant, that we're always suspicious. Like I said, this is COVID-19 time. We're all trying to stay as healthy as possible. That same sort of vigilance that we've been using with masks and social distancing, we need to do that with our day-to-day conversations, whether they be online or offline. And I always stress that even though being a victim of these situations can be incredibly embarrassing to some people, I reinforce that you shouldn't be embarrassed. You should understand that these people are really good at what they do. That's why they do it. And they're also really successful. That's why they do it. And the only way we combat it is to make sure we make people aware. But at the same time, if you did fall for it, don't be embarrassed. Call your local police, call the DA's office, call the state police, call the federal authorities. We have in the past, and in the last 6 months, we've actually made an arrest on somebody who pulled one of those grandparent scams. So it's not impossible. It's very difficult. And like I said, once you give money or your information up, oftentimes it's like trying to get the toothpaste back in the tube. It's just probably not going to happen, or it's going to be really messy. So we have to make sure that we use caution whenever we're giving information, especially over the phone, especially over the internet. Like I said, the places you deal with, if they're calling you up and saying that it's your Netflix account and your credit card expired, be careful. Because those are the things that people are trying to get out of us at this point. So make sure we contact our police and we'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, District Attorney Cruz, for taking time to speak with us today. This is great information and a valuable resource for our senior community. Where can our viewers go to get additional information regarding the resources offered by your office?
Yeah, Joanna, thanks for having me on. All of this information and more is posted on our website, PlymouthDA.com. That's PlymouthDA.com. I think it's important that we get the word out as best we can, and people should share that information. And if you know somebody that has an issue, you don't, give them PlymouthDA.com. Let them go on and look and see. And if you're stuck for an answer, don't hesitate to call because we're here to help. I want to thank you all for having invited me on here today. It's a pleasure to participate with Candy and Marie. And I hope everybody remains safe. And before you know it, we'll be back to as normal as we can be.
Well, hopefully we'll be doing this show in person soon. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you so much for being on our program. And as always, a special thanks to Candy and Marie for being our co-hosts and guests. And I'd like to take an opportunity to thank our home viewing audience for being with us today. And this wraps up this session of our senior safety program. And I hope everyone has a safe day and be well.